Anyone else notice the ghost, or is it just me?
Oh no, the house belongs to Shapeshifters.
The house next door is very obviously an Airbnb.
This is a nightmare!
Pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Oh,
You've been beguiled by his wicked charm.
I fixed it all on my own, Daddy. Mr. Craven's work.
FX is what we do in the shadows. All new Monday at 10 on FX. Stream on Hulu.
Go get him and put him in the trunk.
Don't sing if you wanna live long. It has no use for your song. You're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead and out of this world. You'll never get a second chance. Plan all your moves in advance. Stay dead, stay dead, stay dead, stay dead and out of this world. Shadows light, baby. Alright, baby. You're dead. You're dead.
You're listening to League Podcast, Vampire Council, a What We Do in the Shadows podcast, Season 6, Episode 6, Laszlo's Father. This was, when I read that this was going to be the... Oh, sorry. I'm Matt Dursin.
Clay and Ferno here.
Sorry about that. When I read, like, the description, like, the title, I'm like, oh, Laszlo's Father. This should be interesting. And,
I like that it was like Nandor's Omni, Laszlo's father.
yeah, that's right. I like it. Good synergy there. I was excited at the prospect of meeting Laszlo's father, and I was not disappointed in the least, because his father is played by none other than Steve Coogan.
Aha!
He is one of the funniest guys, you know, of all the impressions, and he doesn't really do impressions in this one, but he's funny apart from that.
Yeah, I am I'm a big Coogan head. I listen to all his most recent thing that he does is his famous Alan Partridge character, which he had a bunch of TV shows. He's been doing it since the 80s, and he's like kind of a doofus, like radio or TV presenter that's like not knowledgeable about anything that he's talking about, and he's kind of, but he likes James Bond a lot. What he's been doing lately is, I think he has like a book deal with Audible, so he does like an audiobook basically, but in his character's podcast. So it's like Alan Partridge from the Oast House, which is like a cottage house in England, and he's had a couple seasons of that, and I always read his like books, and I watch all his movies. I even watch his dramatic movies. I'm just a fan of the guy. I love the guy so much. So happy to see him. And my favorite TV show.
I didn't know he even did dramatic movies.
There's a movie called Philomena, which is good, and then he did this one about how it's like a true story about how this lady found where like King Charles I was like buried in a parking lot somewhere, and they like dramatized the movie, and he just plays like, you know, the guy that helps her like dig up like the first king of England or whatever. He's not funny in the movie, but it's not like a funny movie. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, he's very talented.
And he's in, and one of my favorite movies, which I think gets overlooked when you talk about like old school and Will Ferrell movies, The Other Guys. He plays the bad guy in The Other Guys, and he is so good in that.
Very well. All right, there you go. But I mean, everybody knows him, the Michael Caine impressions and everything, you know, like those kinds of
Trip.
things.
I think you turned me on to The Trip. I didn't even know about it until you told me about it.
I don't even know how I found out about that, but there's the Trip and the trip to Spain and then the trip to Italy, which actually trip to Italy wasn't quite as good, but the first two are very good. So yeah, like he is a funny dude. And so I was happy to see him here as well. And yeah, the perfect, like, you know, like sort of Cravensworth, sort of like, I don't know, hamminess or whatever you want to call it. But he is perfect for this role. So, but there's two stories here. First of all, because it opens with Nandor and Nadja spying on their neighbors because they didn't know they had a window until Nandor like accidentally had a candle too close to like the window.
And he's
like,
the reason that he has a candle too close to like this tapestry on the window, he's writing a love letter to the guide.
Yeah,
it's really funny.
I know. It was very, very good. We haven't seen the guide in a couple episodes, so it's.
And like he like keeps like saying that he wants to get with her.
I don't think she has any idea, but I'm sure by the end of the season we'll see something on that. So yeah, but he's writing this letter and then he knocks the candle down. Yeah, the tapestry burns and he's like, "Oh, we have a window." Like he doesn't even really care that like the place is on fire. I mean, the house he almost burned it down earlier when he was sleep hypnotized. But
like it kind of opens with Nadja and Nandor, which is like the funny. They've been doing it on the show, like where they pair people up. It's usually like Laszlo and Colin or whatever, but it's like, okay, right. This time, like, let's have Nadja and Nandor be like the team up and let's do something with them.
Yeah. I mean, they've definitely done it. I think once or twice maybe where like Laszlo and Colin are sort of doing the A story or whatever. And then like they have Nandor and Nadja doing like the B story, or sometimes just Nadja and Guillermo or whatever. Yeah. Or Nandor and Guillermo, but yeah, the team ups. It's definitely a thing that they do a lot on the show. And the funny thing is, so they're spying on the neighbors and they're surprised that like they're different. They assume their neighbors are shapeshifters, and apparently shapeshifters are awful, terrible creatures. And I love they go through this sort of montage, which they do a lot in the show, but every like painting or anytime they find something that's like sort of like a person's head on like a body. Yeah, like some kind of like weird creature. It's like shapeshifter. So,
and do you know who the person was that they showed?
Wasn't that Steve Martin?
No, it's not Steve Martin. But it did very much look like him, so I don't blame you for that. That's
okay.
Famous impressionist Rich Little, who was really big when we were growing up.
I remember Rich Little. That wasn't Steve Martin? Oh, okay. That's great.
It's so much that I paused it and then I thought it was maybe 3 different people. I thought it was Steve Martin, Paul Lind, and Rich Little, or I thought it was 3 different people, but it was all 3 different pictures of Rich Little like doing different impressions.
Oh, okay.
And so I looked it up.
Good job. Good research. So, but yeah, they shapeshifters are bad. They think they have shapeshifters living over. But Guillermo comes in and says, I told them it's just an Airbnb. And I've told them what an Airbnb is. Like
100 times.
I don't know if I told them. Yeah, he's like, I don't know if I told them. He's like, no, I definitely did. But they're like, old bald guy is not like grew hair, like or whatever.
Yeah, he's like 30 years younger now or whatever.
You're right. So the only way to explain it is shapeshifters. There could be shapeshifters. That's something that could be.
Yeah, I mean, they have
shapeshifters in life.
Oh, and for real life?
Well, for real life, yeah.
And Nandor is like tells the story. He's like they're like the most awful. And I once dated a shapeshifter for 4 years. Turned out she was a possum. and he's like, I had to end it. We dated for another 6 months, but I had to end it.
Another 6 months.
And Nandor like makes that like face that she makes.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I love it. Like old bald guy grew hair. They're not wearing the same clothes, whatever. But that's just one storyline. And as we point out, there are others. The other storyline is we actually cut to Laszlo at the piano. It is he's saying that he is getting a feeling, and someone is calling him, and then he breaks wind. Yeah, he keeps hearing things. Yes. He breaks wind, and he's like, "Not that. That was me." But
he plays a little twinkle, like a fart. Not exactly a fart sound on the piano, but like an acknowledgement of a fart. Twinkle, twinkle.
So it turns out that this feeling is the ghost of Roderick Cravensworth, who is his father.
that Nadja is convinced that it's somebody from beyond. So they kind of Nadja doll and Nadja do like a seance with Laszlo in the kitchen, and like everything shakes and whatever. And then presenting Lord Roderick Cravensworth, the ghost.
Yeah.
I kept thinking about too, like from a technical aspect, how did they film this, and did they have to film all the scenes twice, or can you just like with CGI like have someone act and then they could put the ghost thing in after? They could probably just do it in CGI, right?
Yeah,
like,
they could probably just do it in CGI, right? I mean, I don't know.
I'm thinking of like old technology, but like I don't know, like in old technology you would have to film the same scene twice,
right? Once where he's
maybe you don't have to do that anymore. Like, see, the computer can probably just fill in all that stuff behind, like be like, yeah, there's like maybe you have to keep the cameras really still or something, but the computer can just like generate that stuff inside like the shirt to make somebody look translucent like they did. But it looks great.
Probably. Yeah,
they have done Ghost.
Cool.
They did Ghost Nandor before, or like his ghost horse. And so they've done Ghost.
It Colin Robinson's like grandfather or something, or grandmother?
It was his grandmother. And then later on the episode, he goes, he's talking to Roderick, and he goes, my grandmother's a ghost. And it was just like a small little thing for like people like us that remember that.
Right. Just like a quick little like blurb, nothing really to do with anything. He's like, yeah, my grandmother was a ghost. So yeah, but as soon as Laszlo sees the ghost of his father, he just says, fuck off. And that's that. Like, and now he storms out, and Nadja's like, oh, okay. But he's like, oh, and who is Roderick? Roderick Cravensworth is so like, oh, and who might you be? And he's sort of taken by Nadja. And he's like, oh, you must be his, like, concubine or so, whatever. He does, mistress.
It says like his ethnic mistress or something.
Right.
And she goes, actually, like that, it did start that way, but we've actually been married for hundreds of years.
Yeah, I am now his wife. Yeah, and he's like, oh, well. So yeah, he's kind of, but she's like, she's kind of not into him, but she's like, flattered, I guess, because he's so like, oh, and you're so beautiful, or whatever, like he's sort of laying it on. So
yeah, and like, oh. Nadja's like, and you must be Laszlo's father, and he goes, if the tint fits the cup, and then he goes, oh yeah, you're definitely related.
So it is kind of sitcom 101. I'm gonna just say, this is not really a knock because they do it really well on this show. But to have
it's never a knock.
Father, no, it's never a knock. But I'm just saying, it is sort of a thing that a lot of sitcoms over the years have done, where like a character's father comes in and is like, and they don't like.
Yeah, or it could be some other. The sitcom part of it is it could be just some other person that is supposedly really important to the family. Obviously a father would be, but like
sure.
The long lost, like the brother that's like the surfer brother that's like been in California, but it's like the show's been on for 10 seasons. You never heard about the brother, and all of a sudden he shows up. You know what I mean? It's
right.
It was like, no, he's really not. But they have to introduce him to everybody on the show and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's all, there's always like they don't get along is always the thing. It's not even just like, like it's been done a lot, like they did it. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, like on Cheers, like Sam's brother showed up and they never even like showed him. You never saw him, but they just talked about him. And he talked about, he was like this great international lawyer or something like that, so.
Yeah, they're always so great.
Yeah, he's like, oh, but like Sam had like a picture of him and he had blocked out like his teeth, and like they were like, oh, he'd be better looking if he had all his teeth. And Sam's like, oh no, I did that. Like whatever. It was kind of funny, but yeah, it's like an old sitcom thing to have like, oh, the whoever this other character is, in this case, father and son, like they don't get along, and the Steve Coogan, the father, is always he's like trying. He's like, I know, I want to reconnect. I want to get back. I want to reconnect with you, my son.
Nadja doll. says like, oh, well, because ghosts have unfinished business. That's like always a thing with ghosts, is like they need something to take care of something in the mortal world. What's your unfinished business? Is like, I really want to connect with my son.
Yeah.
And, things didn't really end well.
Yeah. So I love this part though. So the next scene, they're all sitting around like the living room or whatever. And Nandor's like, does anyone want to talk about the ghost? Is it just me? Like,
yeah.
And Nadja goes, she convinces Laszlo to, he's like, introduce everybody. And he's like, yeah, this is my father. And then they list off all his nicknames, which is a really funny part.
The Whispering Swordsman, the Night Dog of Fresco, and
that's the best one.
Thing.
The Night Dog of Tresco, yeah. Scurrilous Bob. And I like it. I forget. I think Colin Robinson, who gave you all those fancy nicknames? He says, all
those dope nicknames.
Yeah.
All those dope nicknames.
And he's like, oh, this person, I was, we were very close. He saved my life. I think his name was Glenn. Like, he just
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we still don't know why, but Laszlo just like, this guy, he's a jerk.
And then Roderick goes, well, who's this fellow over here? And it's the monster. Cravensworth's monster. Who is this most comely of fellows? And then he's like, I, like Laszlo's like all proud. Like, I took what you did, but I, actually reanimated this, from body parts. And then like kind of a classic Steve Coogan, like backtracking things like, well, I did. I got most of the way there, but I didn't reanimate him. But I mean, I guess that's good. But I mean, I did do that. I did do that already, but I just had kind of like body parts like connect together. But
it's almost like I didn't. He almost like didn't. It's kind of like he didn't think it was worth it or something. He's kind of like but good job. Like. So.
Well, he's kind of trying to like not really say that he's proud of him for it, because he's like, oh, I did that too. You know what I mean? Like I did that too. I did. Yeah. Not that attractive or whatever. And then he's just like, I guess he could say he's takes after his creator, and then he sticks a pipe in his mouth and like sits down all funny, gets everybody to laugh. And that's when Laszlo's really hurt.
Yeah. So then Colin Robinson just
takes him on a tour of the house.
Takes him around. I'll take you on a tour of the house. He shows him his, like, first of all, he goes into it's like a safe or like a vault, and he puts in this like really long code. It's like 10 digits or something. And like Steve Coogan gives like the best. He looks at the camera. He's like he's energy vampiring even this guy that he likes.
Even the ghost.
Yes, even a ghost can be fed upon. But yeah, he's like, and he opens up and it's all Funko Pops. Like, and
a lot of Lizzo Funko Pops. He's like, this one she has a flute, this one she doesn't have a flute, this one she has a purse, and like, oh, I can look at you, tell me about these plastic maquettes all day.
I know he's actually like interested. It's funny. Like, so wait, was Lizzo was it The Mandalorian too? That was, I think.
I think so.
I mean, she's not
like
on
Jack
this.
Black or something.
Yeah.
Like the king and queen of some stupid thing.
Like one of those weird planets. It was kind of bizarre, but that was the first time I'd ever really seen Lizzo. But yeah, now I've seen her in Funko form. I read a theory, and it still works. It's still hilarious, but like they don't have any like, Marvel Funkos or anything. They probably didn't want to like pay for the rights to have made up characters.
Oh yeah,
but it's okay. It's
just
still
asked her or whatever.
Yeah, they probably just had real people, But it's still funny that he's got this lock, like this whole display case of them.
As that's happening, Laszlo's explaining to the rest of the vampires, like, he used to humiliate me as a child. His silver tongue is as sharp as the ivory paddle he used on my bare backside, embarrassing me in front of the polo ponies. And then he like goes into really graphic detail about
he's like came down as they watched Again and again. It's like the audio comic. And again and again and again.
And again. And then Nadja's like, yeah, I thought you liked being slapped.
Yeah, I thought you liked being spanked.
And the doll's like, oh, yes.
But yeah, they're laying the groundwork a little bit here. Colin Robinson is a big fan of
He's attaching
Roderick
himself to Roderick,
and Laszlo is not into it. But they're all like, come on, whatever. Well, so meanwhile, as they're watching The Neighbors more, they decide like, we just got to go over there, check them out. I guess this is kind of later, but that's all right. It doesn't matter. So yeah, like they're like, oh, let's just go over there and kill them. But one of the great things, I like how, so Nadja goes over there. And of course, because it's a documentary, technically, we only see it from Nandor's perspective. Like, we don't see what Nadja is over there doing.
Yeah.
But I love, they have walkie-talkies. I think her nickname is Rawhide and his Lancer.
Rawhide and Lancer.
Oh, it's pretty good. So yeah, and I like this bit of vampire, whatever lore is. There's a welcome mat, and he says that counts as an invitation.
Right.
She's able to go in, and she still retains her vampire powers. But yeah,
and Nandor's like talking to her on the walkie-talkie, and is like, and she's like, "Would you shut up? Like they're gonna hear me on the walkie-talkie." He's like, "That's good idea. Good idea. I'll stop talking."
But he keeps talking, and then they hear, and they grab like a knife. And they start walking around. He's like, "Get out of there! Get out!" He's screaming, and he's going. This was one of my favorite gags, like the whole series. Maybe I don't know. I know they've done this sparingly. So Nandor gets his bow and arrow because he thinks he has to like protect her or something, and he shoots the sound guy in the leg. And they go, "Oh, I shot Nate." Oh no, he didn't say it. Yeah, I guess he does. It's like, "Oh, Nate," and like they show the guy in the ground. It's funny because the sound kind of screws up. You know what I mean? You don't hear it the same.
Yeah, you hear him fall like to the ground.
It's really funny.
And
so,
meanwhile, with the Laszlo and Colin are like kind of getting together, and Colin's like, "I really love your dad. Like he's so cool and and everything." And he's like, "No, like." You can't really trust that guy. And Colin's like, it's really nice to have an older male figure in the house. Yeah. Laszlo's hurt. He's like, you fucking did. I like raised you from a baby. And he's like, if you keep talking like that, people are gonna think you're crazy.
Yeah. But I mean, that's like they almost never mentioned that ever happened. There was like a whole season.
And almost immediately when he was adult Colin Robinson, he didn't remember any of it.
Yeah. Yes, he still doesn't remember, but yeah, he's like, I raised you from a baby, Colin Robinson, and doesn't remember. It's kind of, I mean, that's sad in a way, but yeah. And so meanwhile, I love this. Laszlo has created basically the Ghostbusters, like
proton pack.
What do they call the proton pack? Yes. And, like, it's like, and he says, of my own design. And like Colin Robinson's talking to the camera. He says, well, it coincided with me showing him Ghostbusters 2.
He goes, it was a parallel thought.
Yeah, it was a parallel thought. But I love that it's Ghostbusters 2. Like, why would
yeah,
not the first one? Why wouldn't you watch the first one? Oh my God. But it's hilarious.
It is all like steampunk because he's like,
yeah,
because he's showing it to Roderick. He's like, I will suck you dry.
I know. He makes a lot of sucking references.
Yeah, and he's like, and then Roderick says, I haven't heard that since the maitre d' at the Hellfire Club said you can get my pea coat. Or whatever. Or like the other time he says, like, I haven't heard that since my penultimate visit to the Cunny Pot, which was a good use of penultimate.
Yes, penultimate, as we sometimes use that here.
We sometimes do that, but yeah. And he makes that joke about the cunny pot, and like Nadja's just walking by, and like Colin's laughing and Roderick's laughing, and Nadja's just walking by, and she goes, "I didn't even hear that, but I knew that it was funny."
Yeah,
Laszlo's getting so mad.
I know, because they're all taken by him. So like they're gonna go on this like trip to the. I think Colin Robinson said we're going to the M&M store or something like that, or something.
Yeah, because he's like wants to show him his New York that happens now. So Colin's like, he's like a little kid, like I got to pick, so we're gonna go to the M&M store. So they get out the old jalopy.
Yeah, that was a fun little callback.
Tries to fire it up, and it like doesn't even get out of the driveway, and they have to go fix it. And then there's a funny scene with Roderick and Guillermo.
Yeah, I know. It's like something about like my former butler, like because so they're gonna go out. He's like, oh, you don't have a slave. He's like, oh, I do. I don't keep him in the house. And he goes to get Guillermo, and he's like, you have to come and pretend to be my slave. He's like, oh, he's like, you're not allowed to ask why or something like that. And he's like, if you want to impress your father, just tell him. He's like, no, I don't care about that. Just come on.
And Guillermo tells like a really sad story to Laszlo, but he doesn't even care. He's like, I wish that I got to meet my dad, but he left when I was 3. He's like, well, consider yourself lucky.
Yeah. I think he said something like he supposedly left or something like he said something bizarre, but yeah, like but Laszlo has no time for it. So yeah, like he's pretending to be like his servant, and he's like, "Oh yes, my butler was like a psychosexual chess master or something like that." He's definitely insinuating they had sex with his his butler.
Do you service my son the way my Cecil satisfied my every need? Then he's like flirting with him. He's like, the G spot, the erotic zone. And then he goes, Cecil worked my whirligigs like a maypole.
Says, have you ever kissed a ghost?
Yeah, a psychosexual chess master. Have you ever kissed a ghost?
Yeah, and Guillermo's like, he kind of just looks. But meanwhile, like Colin Robinson and Laszlo, they both want to impress him by fixing the car, and like they're failing pretty much. At one point, he's like, "Get a rag, Colin Robinson," and he kind of just throws the rag on it because it's like spitting out like oil or whatever, or he kind of throws the rag on it. Like he doesn't even really like sop it up. He just kind of like tosses the rag at it.
Yeah.
But the car ends up like they finally start it and it just blows up. So I don't know if that's the end of the old jalopy from prior, whatever season that was, but
who knows? But yeah, like this is like also like coinciding with the time when Nadja's going next door, and she walks by Roderick, and he goes, "Oh, a lady of the night, how much for a go around?" And then Nadja turns around and she's like, "Oh, did you confuse me for a lady of the night? Oh, my sincerest apologies, Miss Nadja." She's like, "Oh, you like," she's not offended at all. She loves it. She loves the attention.
Not. Yeah, she's like, "Oh, you know." So yeah. Yeah, meanwhile, when she goes over there and then she escapes, and she comes back in and she's like, "Oh, yeah, get out of there." And she's like, "Oh, did they get Nate?" He's like, "Yeah, they got him." Like he doesn't admit that he shot Nate.
Well, he's like says that like hip hop thing. He's like, Nate got.
But he's like, and then he, it's sort of like typical shapeshifter, like Zartan type of stuff, where he's like, "Well, I lost sight of you for a little while there. How do I know you're not a shapeshifter?" And she's like, and so he ties her up with the silver chains again. So we get those again.
And then he asks her a bunch of questions, and she's like, "The proof that I don't know the answers to the questions is proof that I'm magic because I've never listened to a word you fucking say."
Well, the part that I really like is like, "What's my favorite movie?" And she says, "I don't know." And he says, "Well, let it be recorded that she didn't know it's The Incredible Burt Wonderstone." That's his favorite movie. So just stupid. So anyways, and then So she's like, let me out of here. I'm obviously me. So he's like, fine. And then she's like, wait a minute. I lost sight of you. How do I know you're not?
Yeah, the old sitcom switcheroo. And then he's in the chair.
Yep. It is. And anytime shapeshifters come into play, it's always that like, oh, you might just be pretending and all that. But they end up. So
and the doll slaps him. The doll slaps Nandor, and he goes, "Oh, that was kind of does the that got me straight," you know?
Yeah. Because they're like, yeah. Meanwhile, so then like the owner of the Airbnb stops by, and they're like, "Get down here." I mean, Garen was like, "Come on down." So they go down, and she said, "Yeah, like my tenant said that you were spying on them, and then you broke in." And they're like, "Oh God!" So like, you know, typical like sort of word, like because they're like, "Yeah, we know you're doing something unnatural or something like that." I forget, like he says, and she's like, "Okay, so you know that it's not a legal unit." And they're like, "Yeah," and the Guillermo's kind of like, "Yeah, we know that's the whole thing. We know it's not zoned to be an Airbnb." "Oh yeah, that's right."
And they're like, she's like, "Oh, come on, like don't rat me out. Like I'm just trying to earn some passive income." And they're like, "Guillermo, it's passive income." And like they still don't know what an Airbnb is. Like, still don't know.
And I love it, because Nadja says, "What is this Airpp or something?" And they're like, "What does it have to do with the air?" Like they don't even know.
Yeah.
Which is a good question. What does it have to do with the air? But anyway, yeah. So she ends up trading 1 weekend a month if they don't tell anybody that it's an illegal unit. So they show them like sitting around in robes, and she brings cookies. But this is the best part. There's like a poster on the wall that says "Bye, Felicia."
Bye, Felicia.
Take Karen with you. And like Nandor's like, "I'm going to say that." So, I mean, I've never been in an Airbnb. I mean, most of the Airbnbs I've stayed at are actually tastefully decorated, I guess I'll say. But I can see how that would be something that someone would hang in an Airbnb just to be like, this would be funny, whatever. Like it's probably $5 at Home Goods, you know?
Yeah. They dress it up with the towels and everything. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like kind of like at the very, very end. But did you notice what happens when the lady leaves?
She walks out the door and she turns into a possum.
Yep. So she is a shapeshifter. While
she's doing that, one of my favorite little throwaway lines, you hear Nandor say, "Bananagrams, anyone?" That's like one of my brother's favorite games, Bananagram.
What is that? It's like a Pictionary or something?
It's kind of like a Scrabble type of thing, but there's no board. You just kind of have the tiles. And
yeah.
to make the words, you know, you're just supposed to get rid of all your tiles, I guess, basically. And sometimes you have to like, you know, trade some in and blah. It's like a whole thing, but I mean, if you play against my brother, it's not really fun because he's ridiculously competitive with stuff like that. But I can see how, you know, it'd be a fun little.
It's like they always have stuff at Airbnbs that's like, who's playing the board games or like reading the books, like not just reading the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which I've actually read.
Oh, really? I've never read that. I know it's a book.
It's a good one. And but yeah, they're all like, like with the sign and everything, that "Bye, Felicia," and like, you know, have you ever had like, I've had a couple of situations where I've stayed in Airbnb like in Manhattan or whatever, and like you're kind of almost just like in the same apartment as somebody else, and it might be like you have your own door, but you do see the host sometimes. I don't want to see the hosts at all. I don't want them coming out with cookies or anything like that.
We did have that in New York, actually, and I think we were in Brooklyn. Actually, I stayed in Brooklyn, and that happened like that. Yeah, they came home, and it was like, but like it was a separate door, but it was like right next to or very close to the door that we use. So we were like, what the hell? Are they coming in? Like, but it wasn't. But I was like, oh, that was weird. Like, I know I don't want to see those. but I think she was just trying to make sure, hey, we're not going to say anything, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I brought you guys some cookies, and like Nadja like fake eats one. Oh, thanks.
Oh, yeah, she's like, I could never, like I'm dieting or something. Yeah, but Guillermo definitely eats it. Yeah, so it's another sort of example of like, like they were right. She is a shapeshifter, and that was it. So good stuff.
Back to the main story here with Laszlo's father.
Yeah, so he goes down and Laszlo's father's in the basement, and like they actually like first they make up, and he's like, hey, so like I just want to, and like we forgot to mention this earlier, but Colin Robinson asked him for a hug, and he's like, I don't know if these translucent arms would be able to do it.
But, I don't know if you'll be able to feel my translucent arms.
But now he wants to hug Laszlo, and he's kind of like keeps sort of like moving to the side, and Laszlo's like, what is that? And he's got this like spell book open up to this, and he's like, oh, it's the spell of transference or whatever the hell it's called, and he wants to put his ghost body into Cravensworth's monster, and he's like, no.
I haven't had an orgasm in 200 fucking years.
Yeah.
And then Laszlo's just like, no. Like you're bad. Like, like you shamed me at Wimbledon. And they go back and forth. Right. And he's like, you're just not a good speed tennis player. And he's like, you hired Rasputin to be my babysitter. And he's like, it was last minute.
That was last minute.
It's like, I can't forget who murdered Mother. And he's like, wow, this again.
And again. Yeah, I know. It's like, So it turns out he's like, I don't really want your, what does he call him? Like this wretched homunculus. And like, this line from.
And Laszlo's like, you will not be using him as your meat puppet.
Yeah. But he says, you think I'd want this wretched, whatever for a body? He says, I'm right here.
Yeah.
A little lie. Like, it's like you don't see him. It's off screen.
Yeah. It's like, I'm right here. And then he's like, So Roderick's like, be a good boy and let daddy inhabit your flesh.
Yeah.
So then a battle ensues, and
I know, like we don't see a lot of sort of, not this is an action scene, but we don't get a lot of moments like this on the show. But he starts reciting the spell, and it's like Laszlo is sort of being dragged into, like sort of sucked into it, like a tornado or whatever, like a black hole or something.
Yeah, I think he even gets like thrown into like the Tesla coils and like knocked down and like knocked. He's on the ground and he's crawling. He's trying to get to his proton pack, and then the monster breaks out of his shackles on the table and helps Laszlo get the proton pack, and he goes, prepare to get sucked, daddy.
Yeah. And he's he shoots it. It does look almost exactly like Ghostbusters. I love it. Like, and he sucks him in.
Yeah, but it's like it's the thing that's funny is like he's like, and the back is like I got this from Nadja's dress, and the back is an old chamber clock, but it's like a steampunk proton pack.
I know, it's awesome. It's so great. So yeah, it sucks him in. And then he takes out like the little thing. It's like a little like hourglass. Yeah. And it's all blue. And he's like, oh, goodbye, father, but there's this nice moment after that where Colin Robinson comes down and he's like, oh, where's Roderick? I got this. What do they call it? Funko yourself?
He said, pop yourself of
pop
him.
yourself. Yeah. I've seen that on Facebook and stuff. It's like an ad. Oh, you can get your own. I'm like, wow, that's kind of, I guess it's a good gift. Like I wouldn't pop myself, but I might give them a picture of you, say, and be like, hey, Clay, here's a Funko Pop of yourself.
Right.
It's weird to do it yourself, but whatever. I guess I would do what Colin Robinson did, maybe, like, hey,
he comes in all like a little kid, like, oh, where's Roderick? And then he kind of has to do the like I guess more traditionally it would be like the mom that says like, well, your dad's not coming back. So he goes, he had to go on a ghost mission, and he wanted to say goodbye, but he didn't want to miss his ghost train.
Yeah.
The whole time Laszlo keeps looking at the camera like, I don't know, I'm making this up as I go along.
Like, I know, but it is kind of like when you're a parent and like your kid's pet dies or something like that, you know, you don't want to have to tell them.
Yeah,
but whatever.
exactly.
But yeah, he's like, oh yes, he's like, he wanted me to tell you that, you know, he'll miss you. Like, he's like being really nice to Colin Robinson. And he says he wanted you to have this and to keep it very safe. And he gives him the little hourglass.
And he goes, put it away and very safe where someone will never find it. And he's going to need it when he comes back. And then Colin's like, you have a great dad. And he's like, yes, I do. And then they kind of have like a father-son hug kind of thing.
Kinda, but then immediately they turn and walk in opposite directions. It looks like they're about to hug, and then Laszlo kind of goes like, "Well, I got to get back to work or whatever." Like Colin's like, "Yeah, I got stuff to do." So like, it's about as much of a moment as you're gonna get. You know, they don't actually hug, but it's implied almost. Like,
right.
So that was nice. I thought that was just classic. Like, I don't know why it really warmed me to see him not just being like, yeah, that shithead wanted to steal. I mean, he didn't want Colin Robinson to be disappointed, you know? Like, he was like, no,
right.
He didn't tell him the truth because it would have hurt him too much.
Yeah.
So
he didn't want to miss. He's on a ghost mission. He didn't want to miss his ghost train.
Ghost train. Yeah, and he's like, oh, yeah. And Colin Robinson, he's okay. He's like, he's disappointed that he's not there, but he's not like sad. And I was like, all right, you know, like,
yeah. And he's psyched because he gets to hold on to this thing. Yeah, he puts it with the other Funko Pop.
Puts it in the Funko Pop vault, and that is a nice touch.
Next to his Funko Pop he made of Roderick.
Pop yourself. Yeah.
Which I can only imagine in the like comic book spin-off that we're going to be hired to write. You know, like we somehow have the soul kind of like inhabit that Funko Pop and have a little adventure with the Nadja doll.
The Nadja doll and the Funko Pop. That's perfect. Oh my God.
That's what I was thinking the whole time. I was like, I know there's no more seasons and he's probably not coming back, but you know, I would love it
in the next 5 episodes. Probably if Steve Coogan again.
If he did come back as a Funko Pop, I would be pretty psyched.
Well, that's going to be in the comic book spinoff, like you said. I think you can get like 5 issues out of them going on an adventure together. The Nadja doll and
and it would be an adventure of like a whole world, like where but they're small, so like the whole world is the house. You know what I mean? So like the under the stairs is like the dangerous dark jungle part, and you know all the way around the house is like it's the size of a world because they're so small.
Right, but there's dangers lurking around every corner, probably.
Yeah, like big rats and whatever, or like when they always have it, like when they shrink people down, it's like, oh no, look out for the cat. You know what I mean? Right, it's like the cat's gonna eat us.
Oh my God, I think Boom Studios would buy that. I think we need.
Oh, that is definitely a Boom Studios property. That's not a knock. That's like, honestly, no. I'm going to draft the pitch when we get off the call here. I'm going to start writing it.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I think they would take that. Well, yes, thank you for listening. We're not done yet, but so the next episode is Sean is possessed by a demon, it looks like, in the little preview there. So we get a little more Sean.
And all I saw was the title is like March Madness or something.
Oh, really? There's a quick little thing at the end, you know, and it's like, you're not supposed to look at like, he's like, Sean's been possessed by a demon. Don't look at him. And Nandor like doesn't look, or he's like, don't look, and he doesn't look at Laszlo, and he's like, no, not me, him, like, or whatever. But I don't know what the storyline is. I don't know anything about it. I just know that it could be pretty funny because it has Sean, and I love Sean.
More
Sean
basketball stuff.
Yeah, I mean March Madness. I assume, yeah, like he's probably maybe invites them over to watch the Final Four or whatever, you know, like he did for the Superb Owl.
Superb Owl, but basketball version of it.
Right. That was a classic episode, actually, when they went over to his house and Colin Robinson was like fixing his TV or whatever. And they kept giving him the brain scramblies because, but what was the deal? He had like an Ocean's 11 like museum. Like,
yeah, he had the sunglasses and stuff.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there, and we'll see what happens in the next few episodes. Not too much left to go.
Yeah, so man. I don't mind that we're a little behind because we get to stretch out our enjoyment. Enjoyment.
But meanwhile, you can stretch out your enjoyment and listen to some of our previous episodes, as well as our League versus and James Bond episodes and all the other things we do over at leaguepodcast.com. You can also find us on YouTube and Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also go to vampcouncil.com if you just want to listen to some What We Do in the Shadows stuff. And you can find us on Facebook, which you still can do. That's a thing. And
yeah, we have a Facebook group just for this podcast over there. So Vampire Council, League of Order Gentlemen, Facebook group. Just search it up, and yeah, as you're about to say, you can email us bat@vampcouncil.com with any sort of feedback you have for us. But also, if you'd like to be part of the bats we're about to do by giving us a voice memo that says bat.
Yeah, record yourself saying bat, and we'll add it to the mix.
We will add it to the mix. So I guess that's it, Commander Dursin. Roderick von Commander.
That's it. What is it? The Birdman of Tesco, whatever the hell his name was. Yeah. All right. Are you ready? Are you gonna count us down for our
I'm gonna count us down like a psychosexual chess master. Here we go. We're gonna count down. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
That was a good one.
It was good.
Very well. Very well.
Very well.
Very well. Very well, old chum.
Very well. Very well. Very well.
It's one of the hardest guitar pieces in the world to play.